In the main event of the prelims, if that is such a thing, Victor Henry will be taking on Ronnie Yaya, not to be confused with Joey Zaza. But I'm picking Victor Henry to win this fight. I think he should win by decision. That's always what I would have picked. But of course, I'll be betting on him to win by knockout. And I've already bet on Ronnie Yaya because that's how fucking stupid I am. Ronnie Yaya's plus 390, and he's got a distinct advantage in this fight and in every other fight. So worth it for me to throw a sprinkle on it. But I do think Victor Henry should win. I think he's got a distinct advantage in this fight as well in the whole striking realm. And on top of all that, he's healthier and more dangerous than Ronnie Yaya, striking wise. And Ronnie Yaya, look, I've been watching him fight forever. He hasn't been finished too much at all, but he's still been finished a few times, and he was finished in his most recent fight. Now, he's given himself a lot of time to recover, but of course, in that time, he's gained a year of age. So there's always a downside, and that's what I'm looking at here. I think he, if he does survive and nobody gets rocked or anything, he is still a step and a half behind on the feet against Victor Henry. And I think Victor Henry's got the wrestling to dictate this fight, and he's going to keep it up. Ronnie Yaya, he's excellent on the ground, and we've seen him control a lot of good fighters, and we've seen him handle a lot of physical beasts too. But again, he's just only getting older and slower, and Montel Jackson did stop him, even if it was the first time in whatever, 10 years. It wasn't that, but it was something like that. He was still stopped, and it just seemed like it was a matter of time until the striking caught up with him again, because Ronnie Yaya, he doesn't have a lot going on the feet. It's all just a means to an end. He's comfortable enough to throw down, and he can make shit work for him, but he doesn't have the power. He's one of those guys, kind of like Moicano, up until his most recent win over Jalen Turner. He's one of those guys with no TKO wins by any means, not even a fucking cut stoppage. It's just not in his DNA as a fighter. He will throw down and whatever, but he's just trying to take you to the ground. And he might have some success here and there with Victor Henry if this is a long fight, but I think overall still he's going to be losing the wrestling battle. Victor Henry will survive because Victor Henry, as opposed to uh, Ronnie Yaya, Victor Henry's never been finished. He's got 6 losses, all of them by decision, and then the kick in the balls to Javid Basharat from Javid Basharat. But he's never been put away. And I'm aware here he's fighting a jiu-jitsu beast that, could go wrong for him if it's the wrong type of fight. But I would be really surprised if Ronnie got a victory, really in any fashion, but certainly by finish, even at submission here over Victor Henry. I think it would have to be his primary path to victory is hitting some opportune takedowns and making the most of them with top control. And I still don't think that's going to happen. I think he might have some opportunistic moments, but they're going to be short lived, and Victor Henry's going to be beating him up on the feet throughout the majority of this fight. And look, it could end in 30 seconds. If the chin and health of Ronnie Yaya's gone, Victor Henry, despite being more grindy at the UFC level, he's got enough firepower to go through a 40-year-old weak chin, even though he's 36 himself. But still, he's a striker. Ronnie Yaya is not. So Victor Henry wins the wrestling battle, and he dictates this fight where he has a huge advantage. I think Victor Henry beats up Ronnie Yaya. I'm picking him by decision, but of course I'll be betting every which way. I think Victor Henry by knockout. There's a good chance of it, but I'll have to see what the odds say. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos. Up next, we have Austin Hubbard versus Mikhail Figlak. My prediction for this fight is Austin Hubbard wins a close decision, but I'm most sure of the close decision part of it. I do think this will be a close fight, and I envision it going the distance. I'm favoring Austin Hubbard because of UFC experience, I guess. That and the only UFC experience of Mikhail Figlak was his debut, his last fight, and he didn't look good against Farasiam. And I am the guy who picked him to win that fight as well. But he just looked flat. He was a step and a half behind in every department. And yeah, it just wasn't the best fight for him. It was the worst fight for him. But it's his only loss as a pro. And he's gotten some good wins as well. He actually beat Oban Elliott, TKO'd him way back in like his third or fourth fight. Oban Elliott made his UFC debut a month ago or so. And yeah, he's got some good wins, but you know what? So does Austin Hubbard. And Austin Hubbard's won at the UFC level, even if he's lost a lot more at the UFC level. He's definitely a skilled fighter, even if he doesn't get to show it in every fight. And I think here, at the very least, he's going to give Mikhail Figlak a tough matchup. But at the very most, he's going to give him a bad matchup. I think this is and I don't think it's a bad matchup where he's going to dominate him or anything. I do think this will be close. I think either guy can win with takedowns. You could probably say that for any fight, but this is a battle between two wrestle boxers. Neither guy is really that great with jiu-jitsu, and they can both be controlled. And, you know, that was part of it with Farasiam. Farasiam was out wrestling Mikhail Figlak. Really, to my surprise, out wrestling him pretty thoroughly. And I've seen Austin Hubbard out wrestled plenty, but he's also a guy that I've seen rip some skilled fighters to the mat at the UFC level. So I'm slightly favoring Austin Hubbard here, although I am the guy who picked him to beat Kurt Halaba a few months ago. But yeah, look, he's been submitted. He's never been knocked out, Austin Hubbard. He's been submitted 3 times. So one guy got him before he got to the UFC, and then in the UFC, he was tapped by Joe Selecki and Kurt Halaba in his last one. So I don't think he should get finished, especially because Figlak doesn't have any submissions as a pro. He's got one or two as an amateur, but nothing as a professional fighter. I'm not saying it's not in his DNA because he's only got 8 victories, but I'd be surprised if he submitted Austin Hubbard, and I don't think he's going to be the first guy to knock him out. Figlak does have really good pressure and really good striking as well, but he's not that deadly. I do think this one, you know, regardless of who's winning, it's going to be a points battle. And Austin Hubbard is a hustler. He's a hustler, and he's shown it again at the UFC level. So that is the basis for my pick. I'm siding with Austin Hubbard here, and I've got him winning a decision. And I've played him at plus 145 now because that's his money line. But up until then, you know, when the odds were tighter, I was just thinking about staying away from this altogether because, again, these guys, neither one's got my trust so much. I think this one could be won by the guy who catches the kick at the right moment and takes the other guy down or pins him against the cage. So we'll see. I expect a grindy battle though, and hope we get some excitement. Up next, we have Dontel Mays versus Caio Machado. My prediction for this fight is Machado wins a decision. I think he's a guy that dominated a lot of fighters on the regional scene. He came up in Canada, but he didn't fight the best competition. And I think at the UFC level, a lot of his fights are going to look the way that Mick Parkin fight looked. Although, hopefully, for his sake, the decision goes the right way. Because I did think he should have won that decision. It was very close. But, you know, Mick Parkin, who is not, I'd say, an above average athlete, even in the heavyweight division, but still, he was a guy that on physicality alone, Caio Machado couldn't do what he was doing on the regional scene. Most of his wins are finishes. He's got a few submissions from the full mount and 4 TKOs, I believe, in his 8 or 9 victories. But a lot of them are over shitty fighters. Even if some of them have had good careers, they've been past it. And two of his wins are over Jordan Mean's father. Remember Jordan Mean? He fought in the UFC like 10 years ago. Well, his father fought Caio Machado twice in the last 5 years and got finished. Once with an armbar, once with a TKO from some knees. But look, I'm not just trying to shit on the guy's record. I'm picking him to win because I do see upside with him. I think he is an above average agile heavyweight. He's got exceptional agility and good outside striking. He's a southpaw and he's got a solid left hand. Knocked this one guy out on the back foot. He's big, strong guy. He's not as big as Dontel Mays, but he's still 6'3" or whatever. And yeah, the guy can throw. But here, he's not going to want to go power for power or make this a physicality battle or any of that because Dontel Mays is bigger, stronger, and better and more powerful. And Dontel Mays is a guy that definitely has the power advantage, I'd say, but also you don't want to get in tight with this guy. Dontel Mays, I think, would bully him if these two guys were locked up. And if Dontel Mays got on top of him, he's a problem there too. But I'm picking Kyle Machado to win because I do think he will be able to keep this fight standing. And I think even though Dontel Mays is no slouch on the feet, he's still not the best striker. He knocked out Arlovsky, but, up until the knockout, I thought he was on his way to losing that fight. And I just think Kyle Machado can duplicate some of the success of a guy like Augusto Sakai. I don't think he's going to want to get as close and in tight with Dontel Mays, but I still think he's got distinctly faster hands and better outside striking, whatever the fuck that means. So I'm taking Kyle Machado to win. I do think Dontel Mays will have his moments and will make this close at times, but generally speaking, this is a stand-up fight, and it's one that I think he's going to be a step and a half behind on points, or a half step behind anyway. I don't know. But I'm picking Kyle Machado to win. I think I played his money line. I think he would win by decisions. I'll wait for the props or whatever, but his money line is almost even money, minus 115 right now, as opposed to Dontel Mays, who is minus 105. It's pretty much a toss-up. But I've convinced myself Kyle Machado is going to win. I thought he should have gotten the nod against Mick Parkin. Thought he looked good going the distance against a guy Kevin Slafarsky or whatever on the Contender Series. I wish I would have seen his other loss. He's got this one loss, this guy Dustin Johnson, another good Canadian fighter, and they've actually trained together since then. But I heard it was a war, and it was a 5-round fight. Just kind of wish I saw it. And same goes for his draw that he had against this guy, Jamie Smith, I think. But either way, I've still seen enough from him and a lot more recent fights, of course, where I'm picking him to beat Dontel Mays. Next up, we have Ketlin Souza versus Marnik Mann. My official prediction for this fight is Ketlin Souza wins via decision, but I will be waiting for the props to drop so I can see what decision looks like, but also knockout, because I think that is definitely a possibility here. And hopefully something hits and it makes up for the bet that I've already placed on Marnik Mann. Because we're all fucking stupid here at MMA Al Dente. Listen to me. I'm the only guy here. I'm fucking stupid. I ate the sheep shit. It's accountability. I do think, look, it was worth a small stab on Marnik Mann. She's got heart and wrestling and pressure, but I do expect her to lose. I think if this one does go the distance, of course, I already said I would pick Ketlin to win. I think she would get the nod there. And of course, if somebody's getting finished, even though Ketlin Souza's been finished in 4 of her 4 losses, I'd still favor her to put Marnik Mann away and for it to happen via TKO. But again, she's got 4 losses, Ketlin Souza, and I will get into them here, but you'll hear me harp on them in other matchups because they are vulnerabilities, but I just think Marnik Mann is so outgunned athletically and physically that a finish just in my head really isn't on the table. And it's not like she doesn't have her share of finishes. She's put away most of the girls she's beaten on the way to the UFC, but now she's in the UFC, and in her UFC debut, Josephine Knudsen, I believe, beat the living shit out of her. Dominated her anyway. I don't know if any shit actually came out of her, but it was a decision, but definitely more than halfway to a finish at moments. I think with a little tweak of tactics in any round or whatever, she could have put her away. Instead, she won a decision 30-22 or whatever, which, if nothing else, showed Marnik Man's heart and also a little bit of Knutsen's fight IQ or lack thereof. But Marnik Man was finished in her other loss to Bruna Brazil. Bruna Brazil is a much bigger girl, but Bruna Brazil did catch her with one clean strike. It was a long head kick, and that was it. So whether she was a big girl or not, or whatever, it was a strike against her chin. And I think Ketlin Souza, even though she's only put away weaker fighters, she hasn't put away anybody great. She's still deadly enough from what I've seen. She is pretty damn good, where she can, I think she can put Marnik Man away. But as I was alluding to, she's only put away bad fighters, generally speaking, Ketlin Souza. A lot of cans that were crushed on her way up. But her three most recent wins, I should say, are against good fighters. Maybe not great fighters, but good fighters. Christina Williams, Maiju Suetama, and Giselle Moreira. And she won a decision in all three of these fights. Three of her only four decisions. And they've come lately against high-level competition as far as her record goes. So that's a good look for her. It gives me a lot more trust in her. I really think I can't say I'd be picking Marnik Man, but I'd be betting a lot more on her if Ketlin Souza didn't have those three victories. But she looked good in them, able to tame better fighters, and I think she's going to win this one. Taking over and making it a striking bout. Can't say whether or not she'll get the finish, but I think she'll be winning this fight and doing so on the feet. But Ketlin Souza, like I said, she's been finished 4 times, twice via submission, once to Fabiolane Mello with an armbar, and once recently to Karine Silva with a knee bar or something close to it, where she ripped her leg apart. And she was also knocked out twice. A body kick, a front kick really, to Ariane Canalosi in round 3, where she looked really good, and then she was just shut down with a body kick. And she was also knocked out by this girl, Diane something. I wasn't able to see that one, but I'm pretty sure it's a knockout. So there's doubt with her moving forward, and you will hear me harp on that moving forward, but not here in this matchup. I think her path to defeat. I think whatever her name, Marnik Man's path to victory here is neutralizing Ketlin Souza and scoring top position or some pressure points against the cage and just out pressuring her and smothering her in one way or another and winning a tight decision. But again, that is a small path to victory. I think even if it goes to a decision, this should be Ketlin Souza's fight. Again, based on the way she's looked lately at the Invicta level. And of course, if somebody's getting finished, I imagine it's Marnik Man getting TKO'd in round 2, maybe round 3. And we have finally Mahashate versus Gabriel Benitez. My pick for this fight is Mahashate knocks out Benitez in the first round. That sounds like a very decisive pick, but I'm not so decisive about it. I do favor Mahashate to win, and I do think a knockout is his best chance of winning. But he's still a guy that I have a lot of doubt in. And I'd be picking Gabriel Benitez, let alone betting on him, if Gabriel Benitez has shown more wrestling over the course of the last 5, even 10 years. But he's not as versatile as I once thought he was. And I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's still got the skills, but he doesn't, when you get older, you lose athleticism and you lose wrestling with athleticism. And when you lose wrestling, you lose the whole ground game. And I think that's kind of what's happened with Gabriel Benitez. And against Mahashate, who's a 24-year-old 6-foot kid, he's going to have trouble wrangling this kid. So I'm picking Mahashate to fight his fight. And I think, even though I'll be the first to admit, I think even I overrated his power after that knockout over Steve Garcia. But I still think he's got power. And that combined with Gabriel Benitez now being 35 years old and having been knocked out a bunch 4 times and a couple of times recently, the last few years, I think it's the most likely outcome for me. Mahashate knocking him out. So that is the pick. But Gabriel Benitez definitely has path to victory here. He's got the wrestling path. If he is able to strike his way into a takedown, I think he could slow this fight down like Rafa Garcia did, wrangling Mahashate. And if his wrestling isn't there for him because the athleticism and everything is falling off a cliff, and he's just relegated to being a striker, he's still got something to offer on the feet, Gabriel Benitez. I mean, he is a clean striker and more versatile striker. We've seen him put away guys every which way. And I think if he's able to get to the legs of Mahashate and chop him up and take away the movement, I think he could take over this fight. But I'm not picking that to happen either. I think Mahashate, he ran into a really tough matchup in his last fight against Slavakos. That's an exceptional striker, and I don't think there's too many guys that are going to go through Mahashate like that. And in his last win, or no, in the last win before he came to the UFC over the guy Achilles, whatever the fuck, even though he was nearly out. I thought he was out in round 1, but he took over that fight and he showed a lot of great traits as a fighter and he was on fire in the end. And I liked the way he looked. So, it's all a guessing game, but I'm guessing Mahashate wins this fight. Even if it went the distance, I would think it's that type of fight and he's doing better against the less athletic Gabriel Benitez. But I think a knockout is his primary path to victory. So maybe I'll throw a sprinkle on that when it drops. But as of now, I'm really just staying away from this one altogether. And Mahashate is the pick, but, again, a lot of doubt all around in this one. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos. We also have Chris Padilla stepping up on very short notice, replacing Gabe Green, a former opponent of his, and he is taking on fellow UFC newcomer James Yantop. And I don't even know if that's his name. I just know it's not James Lantop, which is what I was calling him when I was just reading his name. But Yantop is my prediction to win this fight. He has the better striking, in my opinion. The guy's got really good striking. Diverse. He's deadly from both stances. A lot of different attacks, and he's rough in the clinch as well. Can rough you up on the inside. And he's also the bigger man in this matchup. He's got 3 inches of height on Padilla, and I don't know the reach. And also, he's in better shape, I'm assuming. I mean, I trusted his cardio when he was fighting Gabe Green on a full camp. But now fighting Chris Padilla on short notice, I definitely give him the cardio advantage for sure. Yantop. And I think he's got more going on. Yames has been defeated twice. He was decisioned and lost once by a rear naked choke, both in like 2018, 2019. Wasn't able to see it. I really tried to see it. I just want to see the losses, especially the finish losses. Chris Padilla, He's got a record of 13-6, I believe, right now. Of his 6 losses, he's been finished once by TKO or knockout and twice by submission. One of the submission losses was to the aforementioned, I love that word, Gabe Green. Gabe Green, who he replaced here to get his UFC contract. That's one of the guys to submit him with a rear naked choke. The one guy to TKO him is Justin, Jason, or James Gonzalez. I forget the names. There's a bunch of these Gonzalezes. In fact, the guy who was booked to fight in May was Chris Gonzalez, who's a very good fighter. But the Gonzalez that beat him was able to weather the storm. Padilla was all over him early, almost got a standing TKO, and then wasn't able to put him away and got put away himself in round 2. I do think cardio played a role, but I also think it was a body shot that did him in ultimately, a big knee to the body. Can't say for sure, though, even though I tried to see exactly what happened in slow-mo, and I still couldn't tell. But he definitely faded a little bit in that fight, regardless of what happened. And he was put away with a body shot to a bigger, taller guy. And it seems reasonable that that could happen here against James Yantop. But again, that's the only time he's ever been TKO'd, Padilla. And he's definitely the more well-rounded fighter between the two, or he's better on the ground anyway, I'd say. Uh, he's got 4 submissions, I think, and also a good chunk of his TKOs take place on the ground. He's definitely the guy more inclined to get the fight to the ground and better equipped to put the fight away on the ground. And I do think Jan Top is one of these guys, like that other guy making his debut, whoever it is, that could be exposed as a limited fighter. But I don't think this is the fight. I think he's going to be too big, too strong, and too deadly on the feet for Chris Padilla, and in too good a shape. I really trust Jan Top. I've seen him, he's got plenty of longer fights, good finishes down the stretch, and decisions as well. He's a guy whose cardio I trusted again when he was fighting Gabe Green on fresh camp, on a full camp. So I'll wait to see the props or even the odds. I don't even know what the odds are going to be, but I definitely favor Jan Top to win this fight. And I hope both guys have a good debut because I like the guy Padilla as well. So hope to see 2 good UFC newcomers. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.